If you're able to watch this video right now, then you've definitely heard of Battle Royale. This is a genre of game that has completely just taken over all of video games, and the two big ones are, of course, PUBG, or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and then Fortnite by Epic Games. If you follow my channel, you'll notice that I really haven't talked about either of these games at all, and they certainly have not had their own dedicated video from me yet. And that's because, up until more recently, I haven't really had much to say about either of them. I started playing PUBG last year in 2017, pretty soon after it went on to Steam Early Access, and I had a lot of fun when I started playing the game because I've always wanted to get into a game like Rust or DayZ, but those games never appealed to me because every time I was in them, the starting from zero and the monotony and all the grinding required to get to any of the good parts was just too high of a barrier for me. What PUBG did so perfectly was take the really high energy, exciting moments that you see from clips of DayZ or Rust on YouTube. It took that and turned that into its own self-contained game that was only 40-minute long rounds. And really what kept me sticking with this game was how death didn't feel like such a huge punishment every time. There's no long-term power advantage gained by winning games or playing more games. Everyone's on a level playing field, and death is not that bad because you can just start a new round immediately after. And I would look to these core elements of PUBG as being the reasons why it was so successful with such a broad audience. And just anecdotally, I've had such an easy time getting all of my friends to play this game with me. It's a game that everyone has because first off, it's only $30, and second off, there's no crazy time investment required. Like, anyone can pretty much come into PUBG and quickly understand what's going on. While at the same time, there's a lot of mechanics in there to learn and master, there's a lot of nuance. But the thing with PUBG, as anyone who played it back then, or even still to this day to an extent knows, that the game has always been plagued with some pretty serious performance issues.
Who's that?
Gosh.
Oh, fuck! What?
Nice.
Back in 2017, it was super frustrating to play this game. Not only were my frame rates super low, but for me personally, this wasn't an issue for most of my friends playing, but for me, my game was crashing constantly. I was even getting blue screens at one point. Nowadays, it's been a lot better for me. I can't remember the last time I've had the game crash. I don't think it's crashed for me yet in 2018, so that's a good sign. But performance and updates to the game, that's something I'm going to come back to a little bit later. So for most of 2017, PUBG was the top dog, grabbing all the headlines, breaking all the records. Every streamer on Twitch was playing it. There was a little bit of competition between PUBG and H1Z1 King of the Kill, but that was pretty short-lived as PUBG was just so blatantly better. Then things began to change in September of last year when Epic Games put out a free-to-play Battle Royale mode for their game Fortnite. Now, Fortnite was this childish-looking game. I personally had never heard of it. Maybe I saw it but forgot about it. But needless to say, this was a game that was really not on anyone's radar. It was sort of a build up and defend from zombies kind of game, very childish-looking. Now, I distinctly remember downloading the Epic Games launcher back then and giving it a go, and just immediately dismissing the game. I thought it was just complete garbage, that the only reason anyone would play this is because they don't have a PC powerful enough to run the unoptimized mess that is PUBG. But very quickly, it became apparent that other people were not feeling the same way. So when I saw how big Fortnite was becoming and how it was becoming a huge competitor for PUBG, I decided to look into Fortnite a little bit more and kind of personally analyze it and try to determine why so many people like this game. And now that I look at it, it's very obvious what the appeal of Fortnite is. So the really big thing about Fortnite that I don't think anyone talks about is how childish it looks. I think that's a huge advantage for it. Not because I think that that appeals to people or something like that, but because a lot of younger kids, like middle school aged kids or even younger high school aged kids that have, very protective parents, they might look at a game like PUBG and think that's a little bit too much for their Johnny boy, whereas they look at Fortnite and they see this cartoonish game, it looks like a Pixar DreamWorks game, so of course I'm gonna let my kid play that, it's, whatever, it's harmless. And then this is the huge one. This is the hugest one of all. Fortnite is available on all platforms with crossplay. So this entire console demographic's first exposure to the entire Battle Royale genre is going to be through Fortnite, and once they get hooked on that, even if PUBG was to come later on, it's going to be a little bit difficult to pull them off of it. And even if you're a PC player, that's not a guarantee that you'll be able to play PUBG because it was and still is to an extent pretty terribly optimized. And then of course, Fortnite has the building mechanics. Again, you might laugh at me, but when it comes to selling your game, appealing to the Minecraft generation is a pretty savvy thing to do. So I think I would point to all of these as being pretty easy to understand explanations for Fortnite's just rampant success. So fast forward to now, and Fortnite has managed to beat out PUBG as the most popular game on the planet. This has happened for two reasons, I think. The first reason being that Epic Games has been very competent about handling Fortnite since the success. They are constantly issuing updates that include new skins, new weapons, balancing. Like every day I go online, there's some new shit in Fortnite. It's crazy. And then the other reason is PUBG and its inability to keep up with its own success. Now, full disclosure, I've played just under 400 hours of PUBG and less than 10 hours of Fortnite. Now, PUBG should be the game that I want to play. It should be the better game for me because it has more character, I think. It's more interactive. It feels less on rails. You really feel like you can do anything in a way that I don't feel when I play Fortnite. And then PUBG's shooting is more in line with like a military simulator than the very arcadey and inaccurate shooting style of Fortnite. Or at least all of this stuff should be true, but it's really not. Especially that last point about the aiming and the preciseness. This is one of the biggest problems with PUBG. It's aiming, you have to be so precise, everything is like pinpoint accuracy, it rewards that. But then because the game is so laggy, because there's so much latency, because hit reg can be wrong a lot of the time, you might have the best shot of all time and it doesn't connect. And there's just nothing more frustrating than that. But what really made me say, you know what, maybe I need to not play PUBG for a little bit and see if I can make Fortnite work for me, is the constant server outages. I'll be online at like peak hours with my friends, and we'll go on, we'll want to play some PUBG, and then I'll have one guy be like, hey, it says I can't connect to the servers, and I'll just keep pressing the button, man. And then it happens, and then I have the realization, oh, you know what, let's go check the Twitter page. I mean, this is like the third time this week, but let me go check it. And I go on the PUBG official Twitter page. Guess what? Servers are going to be out for the next 3 to 4 hours. So I would let that slide every once in a while. Of course the servers have to go offline at some point for maintenance. Any game that's always online does that. But this has happened so many times repeatedly at, again, peak hours. So those are just two personal reasons right there for why I think Fortnite is better than PUBG right now, why I think it's able to beat it. And those are just personal frustrations as a player. There are tons of examples of PUBG falling flat on its face, both in terms of business decisions and just harming its own reputation, harming its own brand image. The best example is the PUBG Xbox One port. At E3, Microsoft was very eager to announce their exclusive partnership with PUBG to be the first to have it on console through their early access program, and the intentions were pretty obvious from the second it was announced. This is a game that has a lot of controls in it, a lot of very precise controls, and it's not necessarily something that would transfer over to console very easily. And of course, at this point in time, the game was running like dog shit on PC, so what makes them think that they're going to be able to have it run on the Xbox One? And apparently they didn't think it would run, because when the game came out, it was a complete joke at launch, and I still see people complaining about it to this day. This was sort of like Microsoft's No Man's Sky moment, and it was kind of amplified because right now, Microsoft does not have a lot of first-party exclusive games on their platform, and this was it. This was kind of going to be their killer app, their big edge over PlayStation. We have the most played game of all time right now on our console, but it really didn't turn out too well for them. Then the 1.0 version of PUBG launched on Steam. It came out of early access. Was it really ready for 1.0? Probably not, but they did it anyway and made a big deal out of it. The most embarrassing thing I think that PUBG has been doing to themselves is this whole notion that we need to sue other games, other developers that we believe are copying our signature trademark gameplay style. Make no mistake, the reason that Battle Royale mode in Fortnite exists is entirely due to PUBG's success, but the idea that PUBG has any grounds to take legal action against Epic Games, or any other Battle Royale game for that matter, seems pretty ludicrous to me. Before PUBG even existed, PlayerUnknown himself was hired to make H1Z1 King of the Kill, so if we're going by who was first, not counting mods, technically H1Z1 was first. And this is all without even mentioning that the entire concept of these games, including the term Battle Royale, is derived from a Japanese film. And if you want to get really into it, PUBG uses Unreal Engine. Epic Games, the developers of Fortnite, are also the developers of the Unreal Engine. Then if you've played the PUBG mobile game, you might have noticed that the PUBG mobile game was published by Tencent, the massive Chinese company. So here's a fun fact about Tencent. They actually own Epic Games. So the moral of the story here is that no matter what you decide to play, Tencent is winning. But seriously, you can see how any PUBG versus Epic Games legal action is just absurd and very messy. Now, all of that might deter PUBG from suing Epic Games specifically, but it did not stop them from suing some Android clone games. Not only is this a terrible look, it's very petty, but I'm not even sure if there's any real legal grounding for it. I'll be very curious to see if these cases go anywhere. Now, going back to that mobile game, Fortnite had their own mobile game, and that seemingly came out of nowhere, and then the PUBG mobile game dropped not long after. PUBG Mobile was obviously in development before Fortnite announced its mobile game, and it even had an Android version, something that Fortnite still doesn't have today. Yet, it still feels like a rushed, shitty little game that lives in the shadow of Fortnite Mobile. I played about a dozen rounds of PUBG Mobile, and I did pretty well, but I didn't have any fun doing it. It seems like they took the mechanics of the full PC version of the game and then slapped some generic iPhone controls for shooter games on top of it and hoped for the best. While these mechanics are identical to the PC version of the game and the map is a one-to-one recreation of Erangel, the game is not just PUBG on your phone. This is in stark contrast to Fortnite, which is not only the same on mobile as it is on console and PC, but can actually be played cross-platform. So just on that point alone, Fortnite Mobile is the automatic winner in my eyes. And then here's another pretty big thing that I think Fortnite has clearly beat out PUBG on, and that is the monetization. Microtransactions are just a reality of gaming now, whether the game is paid or free to play, but in the case of Fortnite, since the Battle Royale mode is entirely free to play, the microtransactions are the only source of income for development on that front. And Fortnite has handled its microtransactions very well. It's all cosmetic stuff, no pay to win. You can get skins for your characters, skins for your pickaxe, skins for your parachute, and they have more of a League of Legends model going on. It's not so much Overwatch because you don't have to buy crates to have a chance of getting the skins, you just outright buy the skin that you want. And from what I've seen, they bring the skins in and out of rotation to sort of incentivize those impulse purchases for fear of missing out. And then you've got PUBG, which went with the CSGO model, which is like the complete opposite of what Fortnite is doing. You get crates, and you acquire those crates with in-game currency. And there's somewhat of a limit on how many of these crates you can buy per week, as the price of them goes higher and higher each time you buy one, and then it resets every week. Some of the crates are free to open, but others you have to buy a key, just like Counter-Strike. And then all of the items that you can get inside of the crates, in addition to the keys and the crates themselves, can be bought and sold on the Steam marketplace. So out of the free crates that I've opened, I've got complete dog shit every time, always the lowest rarity items. And then on the experimental test server, they gave me a bunch of the paid crates with a bunch of the paid keys. And I got to open like a dozen plus of those, and I got like one decent item out of all of them. So opening these crates is unsatisfying, and then add on to that, PUBG, because it's a more grounded, realistic game, they're more limited by what they can make a cosmetic item than Fortnite is. There is no flaming parachute, there's no John Wick skin in PUBG. Instead, you can get like a checkered flannel shirt or a puff jacket. These aren't very exciting items, and then pile onto that the very obtuse way that you have to get them through these crates or by going on the Steam Marketplace, which is more than the average person is willing to do, and you have a recipe for a microtransaction system that not many people are going to engage in. I've played at least 200 hours of PUBG since the microtransaction items were added into the game, and I seldom see anyone wearing any of these expensive items from the crates. Contrast that with Fortnite, which I've played very little of, but every match I get into, it seems like 60% of the players are wearing $20 skins. The bulk of the blame probably lies on how bland and boring the PUBG cosmetic items are, but the system that you get them with is probably not helping matters. So after all of this, there's one thing that PUBG does have over Fortnite at the moment, and that is more than one map. You would think this would be a good thing for PUBG, as having another map can drastically alter gameplay. This should be a good thing for PUBG, but from what I've seen, people only complain about the desert map. I personally don't mind the map that much, but I definitely see where people are coming from. The bulk of the map is just large open spaces, and you spend a lot of time just running to the next circle on the desert map. And if you're forced into a less than stellar position on that map, it's pretty much game over. So this then brings us to the new jungle map on PUBG, the map that I played last week. This map is far different from Erangel or the desert map. It's much smaller and it's more dense. I played a few rounds on it, and I have to say that I'm not that impressed with it. The idea of having a smaller map is that the rounds will be more intense and go quicker, but in my experience, that really wasn't the case, or at least didn't feel like it. Sure, the very opening bits of the games, a lot of players would die, but through the mid and late game, it would just drag on and on and on. And here's the thing, if PUBG was constantly adding new things and this was just one more extra thing, it'd be okay, it'd be fine, it'd be one more map to play on. If you don't like it, whatever, at least it's something new. But the way PUBG has been adding new content is at such a slow pace that to see that this is the next big thing they're working on is super discouraging. They have this habit of announcing things, and then we just don't hear about them forever and hope they make their way into the game. For example, what happened to the snow map? I thought we'd be sick of that one by now, but it's not even remotely close to being out. And then even this jungle map, I know that it is on the experimental test server, but I noticed that a lot of the assets don't even have textures on them. So it'll probably be a while before we see it in the real game. It left a bad taste in my mouth because it came off as being like, we don't have much content in the pipeline. This is the closest thing that we have to something that's ready to be pushed out. So let's throw it on the experimental test server and just assure the player base that yes, something new is coming. And if this really is the only massive thing coming to PUBG in the next month or two, then I don't see it catching up to Fortnite anytime soon. So just to recap really quick, because I know I wandered off a little bit, my main argument here is that Fortnite has a very understandable appeal, it's on all platforms, it's most importantly free to play, and Epic Games has handled the quick rise to fame very well. They've been consistent, they're always pushing out something new, and the game actually runs properly. They seem to give a damn about that. And then PUBG is doing the opposite. They've been making more and more money, but I don't see that reflected in the performance of the game or in the development of the game. Instead, they go around suing Chinese mobile games and talking about how they might need to sue Fortnite too. It really seems to me that on PUBG Corp's list of things to do, that making the game better is very low priority, which is not a good look. I'm sure some of you, probably all of you, have given at least one of these games a try, but what I'd be interested to hear is if there's anyone out there like me that started on PUBG and has switched over to Fortnite or feels kind of like PUBG has stagnated a little bit. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say down below, and until next time, thanks for watching. Let's see, okay, Zhang B's making the play, he's running through a field, he's getting shot at relentlessly by the expert marksman. Yep, okay, one hit. Okay, he pulls out the Kar 98. Oh my god, he didn't even aim! He just scoped once! I'm watching my death cam now. Yeah, it's the same guy. Yep. Let me see these hacks. These hacks. Oh my god, he really what in the fuck? He can't even see or hear me. Oh my god. He's killing me through shooting a wall to kill me. And
He's
he
not
killed
even
two
aiming.
people.
Do you see?